What's up, guys? Courtney Cox here in the PNC Bank Sports Corner. We are exactly a month away from the NFL draft, so we are going to go position by position with our good friend, Zach Cox. We're going to kick things off today with wide receivers. Zach, thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
All right, so as we look ahead to the draft, let's start with who the number one wide receiver is up for grabs. Obviously, a lot of people are saying Trevor Lawrence will probably go first overall, but who do you think will be up there when it comes to wide receivers?
Well, it seems like in this wide receiver class, there's really a top three. It's JaMarr Chase from LSU, Devontae Smith from Alabama, and Jalen Waddle from Alabama. I think there's a pretty good chance that all three of those guys will go in the top 15, if not the top 10, depending on how everything shakes out. But if I had to pick one top guy from that group, I would probably say Chase. Didn't opted out of this past season, so it's been a while since we've actually seen him on the field. But in 2019, he was the best receiver in college football, incredibly productive with Joe Burrow in that LSU offense, and he really seems like the most complete receiver out of those three, and really out of this entire class. So I expect him to be the first wide receiver drafted, maybe even reuniting with Joe Burrow in Cincinnati at number 5. But yeah, he will not be on the board for long.
All right, well, let's talk about dark horses. Obviously, there are the big names out there, but there are some guys that we've never maybe even heard of here in New England, but could go and make a real impact in the league.
Yeah, this is a insanely deep wide receiver class. It's really been evident since back at the Senior Bowl. We were watching these wide receivers, and there were 12, 13, 14 guys just at the Senior Bowl alone who you were looking at and you could say, wow, this is a guy who could be a factor in the NFL. One of those guys is a guy who you're not going to hear on day one, might hear on day 2, and that's Cade Johnson from South Dakota State. He didn't play football in 2020 because the FCS canceled their season for most schools because of COVID-19, but crazy productive in 2018, crazy productive in 2019, averaged almost 4 yards per route run over those 2 seasons. Really good after the catch as well. Mentioned that he didn't play at all in 2020, but he came back at the Senior Bowl and was one of the more impressive wide receivers there. Really good route running. He's a guy that can really be a factor in the slot at the next level, even though it will be a significant jump up in competition for him. But yeah, in terms of smaller school guys that aren't really on the national radar, I think Cade Johnson's a guy that can emerge maybe late day 2, early day 3.
All right, now let's look at New England as a whole. A lot of people that want to make an argument for Cam Newton say with better weapons, Cam Newton could be great here in New England. For you, do you think maybe the Patriots focus on getting a receiver in the draft?
I think it would be a smart move. They've definitely improved that group already this offseason and bringing in Nelson Aguilar and bringing in Kendrick Bourne. I also think picking up the 2 tight ends that they got will just help this overall pass catching group. But this is definitely an area that I could still see the Patriots adding, especially because we still don't really know what's going on with Julian Edelman. There's a chance that he will not play this season. There's a chance that he'll retire this offseason. It's still up in the air whether his knee will be physically well enough to go. And then even if he does play, you've got to imagine this is probably his last year. So I think the Patriots would be smart to target maybe a slot receiver of the future to either replace Edelman this year or sort of be groomed into that role a couple of years down the line. And there are a lot of really solid, really intriguing slot talents in this year's class. It'll be interesting to see where the Patriots actually go with this, where they look to target a receiver, because they've never really targeted receivers high in the draft. N'Keal Harry is the only receiver they've drafted in the first round in the Bill Belichick era. Obviously, that pick doesn't look like a particularly good one 2 years in. But there's a chance that if Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle falls to them at number 15, that could be an intriguing selection up there. Or, again, as I mentioned, there are so many talented guys that'll be available on day 2 and even day 3 this year. So I do expect the Patriots to draft a wide receiver at some point in this year's draft, but it'll be interesting to see when they pull the trigger on that.
All right, well, there you have it. As I said, we are a month out. The draft is April 29th, and leading up to that, we will be talking with Zach a whole bunch about what guys we could see here in New England, what guys we could see go early, go late, all of the above. So you can follow along with Zach on Twitter at ZachCoxNesson. Keep it on Nesson.com as we get ready for the NFL draft. PNC Bank, helping to make banking easier.